So, you know how sometimes a really small thing will suddenly be all over the news? Lately, it feels like? Well, everyone's been talking about getting rid of the penny.
Yeah, I've seen that popping up too, kind of weirdly prominent.
Exactly. You might have even seen some discussions about it online. It seems kind of trivial on the surface, right?
Totally. A penny.
But it made us wonder if there's maybe more to it, especially after we came across a video. It was from the Ring of Fire called "Trump Uses Pennies as Weapon of Mass Distraction."
Ah, okay. What's fascinating right off the bat is this idea of a seemingly mundane topic, pennies being presented as like a deliberate strategic tool.
Right.
It really makes you consider whether what we see dominating the headlines is always the full picture or if there might be something else going on underneath.
Exactly. So this isn't your standard economic breakdown of the pros and cons of the penny. Instead, we're diving into the argument this video puts forward, that all this focus on pennies might be a calculated move.
A diversion tactic.
Yeah, to divert our attention from other potentially much bigger developments. Our goal today is to explore the insights we can find by looking beyond this seemingly simple debate.
Okay, so the video starts by touching on a point that's been around for a while now. The simple economics of the penny. For years, it has actually cost more to produce a single penny than its face value.
Right, like 2 cents to make 1 cent or something like that. It's been that way for decades.
Yeah, exactly. It's a bit of an odd situation when you think about it logically.
And the video points to a specific moment that seemed to reignite this discussion. Apparently, right after going to the Super Bowl, Trump took to Truth Social and made it pretty clear he thinks it's time to ditch the penny, even saying he just doesn't like them. Now, as the video acknowledges, on the surface, his point about the cost, well, it makes a certain amount of sense.
Sure, the economic argument isn't new, but here's where the video's argument takes a sharp turn. It moves from this practical, almost common sense issue with the penny to a much more provocative idea.
Which is
that this sudden emphasis is a deliberate non-issue. The underlying thought is that while the media and the public are engaged in a debate about pocket change, other, more significant events could be unfolding without as much scrutiny.
Okay, let's really dig into this weapon of mass distraction theory then. The video provides some pretty specific examples of what it claims this penny debate is supposedly taking our attention away from.
Right.
The first one mentioned is the possibility of the U.S. using drones to essentially invade drug cartels in Mexico. That's a pretty attention-grabbing claim right out of the gate.
It certainly is. And it's really important for you, the listener, to keep in mind that this is the specific argument being made by the video. They are drawing a direct line suggesting that the timing of the penny discussion isn't accidental, but rather intended to coincide with and therefore distract from potential military actions. Now, this idea of a weapon of mass distraction isn't entirely new, though. We've seen similar accusations leveled at various administrations and media outlets throughout history. It makes you wonder about the inherent challenge of focusing public attention on multiple complex issues simultaneously. What do you make of the video's specific examples in light of that broader context?
That's a really interesting point. It does make you think about information overload, doesn't it? How much can we realistically track? The video then moves on to an even more significant claim, the potential movement of U.S. troops into the Gaza Strip.
Okay, wow.
And they don't present this as just some hypothetical scenario. The video connects this alleged troop movement directly to a threat Trump supposedly made to Hamas regarding hostages.
Right. So the narrative being built here by the video is quite layered. They're suggesting a sequence of events. A threat is issued, a justification is created, and then a troop deployment happens, all potentially happening behind the curtain of this seemingly less important penny debate.
Yeah, that's the picture they paint.
You know, from a media studies perspective, the video's accusation of intentional distraction raises interesting questions about gatekeeping theory and the power of agenda setting.
How so?
Well, while it's easy to point fingers and say distraction, the reality of news production is often far more complex, right? It involves editorial decisions, resource constraints, the constant battle for audience attention. How might these factors play into the media's focus on certain stories over others, even without some grand conspiracy?
It definitely complicates the picture, doesn't it? It's not always black and white. So when the video talks about troop movement, what kind of scale are they implying? Is this presented as a small, targeted operation or like a larger deployment with wider regional implications?
That's a good question. The video seems to imply something significant, not just a minor adjustment.
Because that context helps understand the weight of the alleged distraction. The video then goes even further, asserting that this potential troop movement into Gaza is part of a much broader objective for Trump and Israel to essentially take over the Gaza Strip.
Which is, yeah, that's a really significant and, it has to be said, highly controversial assertion presented in the video.
Oh, absolutely.
Indeed. And the video doesn't shy away from using very strong language to describe this alleged goal. It mentions a supposed desire to see Palestinians in the ocean, attributing this sentiment within the context of this alleged broader plan.
Wow.
It's a stark and disturbing claim that's presented as part of this strategy of distraction. It's important, again, for you, the listener, to remember that the video presents these connections as allegations.
Right. The video is making the connection.
Exactly. While the timing they point out might be interesting, establishing a direct causal link between the Penny discussion and these potential military actions requires a significant leap of inference based solely on what's presented.
And the claims don't stop there either. The video even suggests that Trump is allegedly threatening neighboring countries like Jordan and Syria.
Okay, so broadening the scope now.
Yeah. The implication here is that these potential international escalations, which would obviously have huge implications, are being overshadowed by the relatively small domestic discussion about pennies.
So if we follow the video's logic, we have this confluence of potentially major geopolitical events, drone strikes in Mexico, troop deployments in Gaza, a purported plan to fundamentally alter the region, and alleged threats to other nations.
A lot.
A whole lot. All supposedly happening while the main focus of media and public conversation is on whether or not we should continue using the penny. It certainly paints a dramatic picture.
Which naturally leads us to the video's perspective on the role of the media in all of this. And it's pretty critical, to say the least.
I imagine so.
The video argues quite strongly that the media is actively contributing to this distraction by making the penny story a top headline.
The accusation here is quite pointed then. The video suggests a failure, or perhaps even a deliberate choice on the part of major news outlets to recognize or prioritize what it deems to be far more critical global developments.
Yeah, it's like they're saying the media is missing the forest for the trees, or maybe just looking at the wrong tree entirely.
You could think of it like a spotlight. When the video talks about the media focusing on one story over others, well, whatever the media shines its light on gets the most attention, right? And other things, even important ones, can remain in the shadows. That's the core of their critique here.
And it names specific news organizations, MSNBC, CNN, Washington Post, LA Times, and even Fox News is mentioned, suggesting they're all part of this bubble.
A media bubble.
Yeah, where they lack the understanding or awareness, according to the video, to see the bigger picture. The video argues that they're missing these alleged significant events that are supposedly happening right under their noses.
So the video's perspective is that these media outlets are so caught up in the surface-level discussion about pennies that they're either failing to adequately report on, or perhaps are even intentionally ignoring what the video considers to be much more pressing and significant issues on the global stage.
And to really emphasize this point, the video mentions that at the time it was recorded, there were numerous stories circulating about the penny debate.
Right, like we observed earlier.
But, according to them, no significant mention of this alleged plan to level the Gaza Strip and build luxury condos. It presents this contrast as a clear indication of a major failure in journalistic priorities.
It's interesting that the video positions the penny debate as inherently trivial, though.
How do you mean?
Well, for some people, even seemingly small economic issues can have symbolic or practical significance, you know? Could there be other reasons why this topic might gain traction, even if it's not a deliberate distraction orchestrated from the top? Like maybe it just resonates for simpler reasons?
That's a crucial point to consider. Is it definitely a distraction or just news happening? But anyway, the underlying motive, according to the video, really centers on Trump's alleged threat to Hamas.
Back to that specific point.
Yes. The video interprets this statement not as, say, a genuine concern for the hostages being held, but rather as a manufactured pretext, a way to justify sending U.S. troops into Gaza.
Okay, so constructing a rationale.
So the whole penny discussion, in this view presented by the video, isn't just some random news cycle that happened to grab public attention. It's framed as a carefully placed piece within a much larger strategic puzzle.
A deliberate move.
The video argues that Trump made the statement about Hamas specifically to create a justification, a reason, to deploy troops to the region. That's their assertion.
And the video concludes by strongly reiterating its central argument, that this potential military action in Gaza is just the initial step towards a much broader objective.
Which, again, they claim involves.
One that, according to the video, involves Israel and the forced displacement of Palestinians, all of which is being deliberately obscured by the seemingly insignificant debate over the future of the penny in our pockets. That's the final thrust of their argument.
So just to summarize the argument as it's laid out in this video for you, the listener, the ongoing discussion about whether or not to get rid of the penny might not be as straightforward as it appears. The video suggests it could be a calculated tactic, a deliberate maneuver to divert our attention away from much more significant geopolitical events.
Specifically mentioning potential military actions in both Mexico and the Gaza Strip.
Right, and also alleged threats being made to countries like Jordan and Syria.
Yeah.
All supposedly happening under the radar because of pennies.
This perspective, presented by the Ring of Fire video, while certainly thought-provoking, leaves us with some really important questions for you, the listener.
Definitely.
Considering this particular lens, how do we, as individuals trying to stay informed, make sure we're not solely focused on these surface-level discussions and potentially missing much larger, interconnected global developments?
Yeah, how do we look past the shiny object, so to speak? And what is the real responsibility of the media in all of this? Are they just reflecting public interest or actively shaping it? Or, as the video claims, are they missing the plot?
And are we, as consumers of information, equipped with the critical thinking skills needed to effectively discern between what might be genuine news and what could potentially be a calculated distraction?
It really makes you wonder, doesn't it? What other seemingly minor news items might actually warrant a much, much deeper look? Perhaps the true value of a penny isn't just its monetary worth,
but what it might be inadvertently concealing.
Exactly. Something to think about.